Hello, this is Brian Rowe with Mythic MTG Tech number 41. We've got the new Gatecrash event decks coming out this week, and I'm doing a quick review of them here. We've got a Boros deck and a Simic deck. One thing that's really interesting about these decks is that the prices have already shot up on the Boros deck. The MSRP is $25 for each of these decks. The Simic deck I've seen around town for $20, $25 no problem, but the Boros deck is clearly at $30 or $40, and in some cases even the ridiculous price of $50. So one piece of advice on these in the future is if you see somebody pre-selling these as a set for a little bit below retail, as some of the different online retailers were doing before the complete lists were put out, I think it's worth in the future ordering the complete set of them together. Most places I saw had them for between $40 and $50 for the set of both. So even if one of them turns out to be a dud, the one that has shot up in value, you're able to get for the same price as the inflated price after the deck list, and then you get the one that's less expensive in that deal. The first deck that I'm going to look at is the Thrive and Thrash deck. This is a solid deck, although I'm only giving it a 2 out of 5 here for two reasons. One is that it's really not that competitive in the current environment, and outside of Thragtusk, the value of the cards is pretty ridiculously low. This is, I believe, our third event deck to have Thragtusk in it. Thragtusk value has started to drop significantly. Wizards has also put several different cards in the environment that are designed to deal with Thragtusk, so his price has been slowly coming down, even though he's still played in a lot of tournament decks. I think it's the right thing for Wizards to do to continue to print an extremely expensive, overpriced rare in event decks this way. The rest of the event deck also still needs to be really good. Let's take a closer look at this event deck. The value of the event deck is decent, especially if Thragtusk keeps his value. The other card in here that's got a little bit of value is Rancor. Wolfier Silverheart is valuable if there was a block going on right now and you were playing in block tournaments, but several of the other cards in here, like Yeva, was already printed in a pre-construct, and Deadeye Navigator has little to no value as it is. Even the Sphinx, who I love, is a great casual and EDH card, has very little value. So the value on this deck is decent, but it's really just due to Thragtusk, and if Thragtusk takes a dive or sees a lot less play because of cards like Boros Reckoner, the value of this deck may end up being more like $15 or $10 pretty quickly. The competitiveness of this deck is what I really don't care for it from an event deck. It's got some really cool, cute combinations. The Sphinx with Deadeye Navigator is really cool, and Thragtusk with Deadeye Navigator is entertaining. Even Mistraven makes a nice little combo there, but it really can't hold up in F&M. I would not recommend playing this deck as it is in F&M. I would only pick this deck up if you either need the Thragtusk or if you want a cute casual deck to play. If you want to make this deck more competitive, you really need to add Farseek. Even if you don't add another color, adding Farseek increases the speed at which you can get to your top end combos, which is where the power is in this deck. Your Acidic Slimes, your Thragtusk, your Deadeye Navigators. The other thing is the mana base is kind of horrendous in this deck, so you really need Breeding Pools and Hinterland Harbors, although I really don't recommend picking up Hinterland Harbors right now. The check lands in Innistrad are ready for a big dive. They're going to rotate out here in a few months, or they're going to be printed in the next core set. Either way, the price on them will plummet. They're barely playable in Modern, not playable at all in Legacy. I wouldn't go out there and buy a bunch of Hinterland Harbors for this deck unless you really love the idea. Now, if you want to make it really competitive, you need to add another color. Don't just put in those Farseeks, but also add Hollowed Fountains, Restoration Angels, and some other Bant package to give it the staying power to live early and give it a lot more flexibility. There's several different decks out there that are competitive in Bant. I would definitely look those up if you like the strategy that's in this deck and you want to make it competitive. Second deck that's here that has everybody really excited is Rally and Rout. This is the Boros deck. This deck is amazingly good. Overall, I really like this deck. It is a competitive, solid deck. There's some things that could be done to improve it. It also has a lot of cards that people really need right now, which is why it's up over 40 bucks currently. I'm going to try to get my hands on a copy of it and maybe do an opening video later tonight if I can find it at a reasonable price. The value of this deck is 40 bucks plus. The Skullcracks in there have a little bit of value. Clifftop Retreat, though, is crazy right now at $15 plus, and nobody can find copies of it because so many people are playing Boros. I'm sure this card is going to drop in the near future, but if you want to play Boros, this is one of the ways to get the lands you need for it. Silverblade Paladin, even after being a buy a box promo card, is way up there, and Thalia is likely to keep her value for a long time to come, as it's still a very strong legacy and modern card, and it's not bad card in standard. Big thing in here though is 2 copies of Boros Charm. Boros Charm is up over 3 to 5 bucks in many of the places that I go. I see a lot of people trading it for several rares. The card is extremely useful. It's great against board wipes. It hits damage to their face and occasionally even does extra damage with the double strike. Spark Troopers is in here, which is a little bit disappointing. I don't think they really hit on the right there from the new Ravnica. Some areas for improvement in this deck, but overall the value is not where we're really missing out. The competitiveness of this deck is actually very solid also. There's a Slayer's Stronghold, which is very good for your aggro strategies. Lightning Mauler is a wonderful card for those strategies, and even Doom Traveler can be very good for turning Battalion on. I'm not that overly impressed with Battalion as it is currently, because it makes you commit a little bit too much to the board and is a little bit fragile, but it is a good, solid mechanic, and it's one that you can learn from. Even the Sky Knight in here for an inexpensive card is nice because of the haste. This deck, though, could be made amazing. There are a lot of cards in the environment that could easily be added to push this from a tier 2 deck to a solid tournament winning tier 1 deck in the current environment. More Boros Charms is an obvious addition. Caverns of Souls to stop counterspells if we see them. Clifftop Retreats and Sacred Foundries would be really nice. What is amazing to me is this is called a Gatecrash event deck, and we still don't see any of the Gatecrash lands in it. Frontline Medic is another solid addition. It helps with the Battalion, it lets you attack, and it also stops Sphinx Revelation, which is seeing a bit of play now. The big card that is possibly missing from this deck is Boros Reckoner. Boros Reckoner is a rare right now for Gatecrash. This boy is sick. He is incredibly powerful. I'm going to be doing a whole video later today on what you can do to beat Boros Reckoner. To make this deck really tier 1, you need to add some Reckoners. He does so much for adding extra damage and giving you some flexibility. I also really like Hellrider as an addition to this deck. So there's many things you can do out there to add to this deck, but a lot of them are expensive. The Sacred Foundries are running 12 to 15, and the Boros Reckoners are cresting over 25, almost 30 at this point. This has been Brian Rowe with a Gatecrash event deck review. I just wanted to also say I was a little bit sad that I didn't see a Dimir event deck here, and I really hope to see a Dimir event deck come out of the new Dragon Maze set.